Have you ever wondered how humility can be prideful? How it is actually more dishonest sometimes say that you don't know instead of being certain about something? I have. And I think I have an answer I would like to share with all of you. Welcome back, everyone. Today, I want to talk to you about an almost paradoxical situation. I find a lot of times in conversations with skeptics, specifically agnostics and atheists, an over reliance on doubt and a false presentation of epistemic humility. Now, to be clear, I do not blame them for their position. It's actually a justified response considering that most of them come from a dogmatic environment. As Aristotle points out, when steeped in one extreme, we try to correct to a virtue and we often overextend to the opposite extreme. For example, if one struggles with cowardice, they often become foolhardy before becoming courageous. What I want to do today is first identify what I am talking about, dive into why it is occurring, and then finally offer some advice or speculate on where to go from here. So, firstly, what is happening? As I mentioned and even hinted at in my previous video, there is a false humility that can be found in the side of the skeptics. Now, I am not saying this to say that they are wrong or that it is shameful or horrible or even that all of them have this. Rather, I think it is a kind of comfort position. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, in academic circles, epistemic humility is extremely important. It is the recognition that we don't know everything and to know that we don't know everything. It is also the idea that only speak on and move in areas that we do know and can know. This is found especially in the scientific community, where the use of know is often replaced with theory. Now, this is not to say that a scientific theory is false, but rather it is the epistemic humility language that is being shown here. The idea is that we only operate on what is available to us, and we can't know what is not available to us. As such, what we are currently presenting is the explanation that accounts for everything that we know. Now, it can be the case that there is something that we don't know that will, at best, change the theory to become more accurate, and at worst, invalidate it. However, because of how slow and careful the scientific method is, the likelihood of that happening as time goes on gets smaller and smaller for an established theory. But as they say, never zero. From this, we have people who know that this is the intellectually honest way to talk, but don't always use it properly. And I think this occurs for a number of reasons. One, they are overcorrecting the dogmatic approach of their previous environment. As I mentioned earlier, most skeptics come from an environment where all religious positions were unquestioned. It was stated with certainty. Then, in their curiosity, one of the unquestionably true things is shown to be false. Well, now, everything is false, or at least can't be known to be true. As an example of how damaging this dogmatic approach is, check out my friend Kevin's story. Now, I'm not saying that Kevin is damaged. In fact, considering what happened, he's doing fantastic. What I am saying, though, is that due to the over elevation of some of the private revelations or opinions that are permitted, but are not dogmatic within the church, to an almost dogmatic level emotionally, it can cause harm. When Kevin found the evidence of these statements lacking, the evidence of the emotional dogma they were given, and the evidence of what was emotionally and dogmatically claimed to be false being shown to be true, it shattered his faith. Now, he has since then found other issues with the church itself, but the damage was done because of this overly dogmatic approach. As such, many individuals now are overly sensitive to any dogmatic declaration, especially from religion. In fact, check out the many conversations Kevin and I had where we touch on this subject. In fact, I've got a live stream in my channel where he and I go over this exact aspect. Now, the second cause or underlying factor of this is Kant and Descartes. Even if you're not familiar with their work, their influence on modern thought cannot be denied. Both of them start from a place of questioning everything and presuming to know nothing. Now, they, especially Descartes, are often falsely accused of concluding that we can't know anything except for some small statements. such as the cogito ergo sum. Now, this is not the case, especially for Descartes, as he argued that we can start from there to know the rest of reality. This was just his undeniable truth, his foundational point that started his journey to knowledge. Regardless, the common understanding in today's amateur academic environment is to acknowledge that we can't know anything. A kind of, I know that I know nothing. Now, this phrase from Socrates has kind of become the skeptic's mantra. They claim they know nothing and thus commit to nothing. Yet Socrates himself made many claims and many commitments, but his approach was to only claim what he was certain in and question other certainty until truth was reached. The Socratic method is a path to help others to knowledge and certainty, yet many use it to destroy knowledge and certainty. So, why am I calling this a kind of pride? Because it does something similar, but in the opposite way of dogmatism. The dogmatic person is closed minded on certainty. They reject any evidence contrary of their position, or that would put their position in question and bring about uncertainty. This is an act of pride. The skeptic who refuses any kind of certainty is steadfast in their uncertainty and refuses any evidence or refuses to follow logic when it would require them to make a statement with certainty. They are closed minded not on certainty, but rather to being certain. If pride is the source of closed mindedness, it doesn't matter how it appears, it's still the same source. Now, this is something that's hard to overcome because, to quote the monologue from Ratatouille, it is easy to be a critic, to show the flaws. And this comes from an idea that someone must be 100% certain on something before it becomes justified to hold a position. To quote myself in a book I'm working on, knowledge is not a binary system, but a matter of degree. As Aquinas states, truth consists in the mind's conformity to the thing. Perfect knowledge does indeed require perfect conformity, but just like conformity is measured in degrees, so too is knowledge. As Aristotle pointed out, understanding lies in the power to divide and combine. We may grasp a part of a thing while remaining ignorant of other parts that are logically or conceptually distinct. Thus, while full comprehension represents the highest form of knowledge, it is not required for knowledge as such. Partial comprehension yields partial knowledge, and partial knowledge is still knowledge. Now, for some reason, many people are okay living as something is certain when the degree of certainty isn't 100%. Yet, when it comes to religion, they often refuse to move forward unless it is 100% certain. This isn't logical and is a kind of closed minded approach, similar to those of the dogmatic. So, what do we do here? This is not saying that theism is true and atheism is false. This is only talking about the approach. And I know many theists and atheists who have true humility in this. And I also know many theists and atheists who don't have this humility. What I am talking about is that acknowledging lack of knowledge isn't always humble. It can be prideful to stay where you are. As a priest once told me, if someone who is the best piano player of her class, upon her mother boasting and asking her to play for the guests, responds with, "Oh, I'm not that good," this isn't humility, it's lying. Humility is the right view of oneself and reality. So to have a false view of reality is pride. So what do we do? Well, we can't change others. So change yourself. Do a self reflection. Are you truly open to truth and where it leads, even if it is different from where you currently are? Do you follow the actual idea of I know that I know nothing, even if it includes that you could be wrong in your hesitation? Thank you all for watching. Again, this isn't meant to push back against the skeptics. This is all talking about the approach. Are we truly humble and truly following the logic where it leads, both for myself and for those that I speak to? Thank you for listening. If you like this video, comment, leave a like, helps get my videos out there, and God bless.